Let me ask you something. Have you ever been driving alone at night, on an empty road, with no houses, no streetlights, and no signal on your phone? Have you ever felt like, even though you were alone, something was watching you? Some people think the night is peaceful. That once the sun goes down, the world becomes quiet and safe. But across America, there are roads, houses, and lonely places where the darkness hides things no one can explain. It was almost 1:30 in the morning when I left my friend's house in rural Texas. We had been talking for hours, and I didn't even realize how late it was. I felt tired, but confident. I had driven this road many times before. It was quiet. Straight. Have you ever driven so far into darkness, that it feels like the world has ended behind you? No houses. No lights. No signs of life. Just you, and the sound of your engine. After 15 minutes, everything around me disappeared. My headlights were the only thing keeping me connected to reality. Even the radio started breaking into strange static. And that's when a scary thought crossed my mind. If my car breaks down right now, who would even know where I am? Let me ask you, what would you do, if you realized someone had been following you, for miles, in complete silence? When I noticed the headlights behind me, I felt relieved. At first. But that relief didn't last. 10 minutes passed, then 15. And the car never left. It stayed at the same distance. Like it was studying me. Like it was waiting, for the right moment. Have you ever picked up your phone in fear, praying that someone would answer, and seen nothing but no service? That's what happened to me. No bars. No internet. No help. I refreshed the screen again and again. Nothing changed. Then, the car behind me turned off its headlights. And suddenly, I was no longer being followed by a car, I was being hunted. What would you do, if someone decided that tonight, you were their target? The engine behind me roared like an animal. It was coming closer. Fast. Too fast. My hands slipped on the steering wheel. My breathing became shallow. I couldn't think. I could only run. Every second felt like my last. Have you ever seen hope, when you were sure you were about to die? That's what that gas station felt like. One small light, in the middle of endless darkness. I drove straight toward it without thinking. And just when I reached safety, the car stopped. Turned away. And vanished, like it had never existed. Inside the gas station, I collapsed on a chair. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My legs were weak. The cashier told me, "You're lucky." He said, 3 drivers had disappeared on that road in the past year. No one ever found them. I never took that highway again. And even today, when I drive at night, I still check my mirror, just in case. Even now, I still avoid lonely highways at night. I still slow down when I see a car pulled over. I still feel my chest tighten when headlights appear behind me. Because that road taught me something terrifying: not everyone who asks for help needs it. Some people wait in the dark, pretending to be broken, waiting for someone kind enough to stop. I survived because I trusted my instincts. Because I kept driving. Because I didn't look back. But sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had stopped. Because weeks later, I saw a news report. A driver was found on that same highway. Same spot, same time. Different night. They had stopped to help. They never made it home. And that's when I realized, I wasn't just escaping a stranger. I was escaping something that had already claimed others. Something that was still out there. Still waiting. Still hunting. So if you ever find yourself alone on a dark road, with no signal, and someone waves you down, remember this story. Remember what happened to me. Because the next story proves something even worse. Sometimes, you don't even need to stop for danger to reach you. In the next story, I'll tell you about the night I locked myself inside a motel room, thinking I was finally safe, until someone started knocking. Slowly. Softly. Repeatedly. And what was on the other side of that door still follows me in my nightmares. Would you have kept driving? Or would you have stopped? Let me ask you something. If someone knocked on your door at 2 a.m., in a strange place, where you know no one, would you open it? Or would you pretend you weren't there, and hope they went away? One man had to make that decision, in a lonely motel room, and choosing wrong could have cost him his life. Have you ever been so tired, so exhausted, that you ignored a bad feeling just to get some rest? That's exactly what I did that night. I had been driving across Arizona for hours. My eyes were heavy. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. When I saw the motel sign flickering in the distance, I felt relief, not fear. The building looked forgotten. Cracked walls. Dead lights. A parking lot with only 3 cars. Something in my chest tightened. But I told myself, it's just my imagination. Would you have trusted that place, or would you have kept driving into the dark? Have you ever stepped into a place that felt wrong the moment you entered? The hallway was too quiet. No TVs. No doors opening. No voices. Just the buzzing of a dying light above me. Every step echoed like I wasn't supposed to be there. The carpet smelled damp, like it hadn't dried in years. I felt watched. Not seen. Watched. If you felt eyes on you in an empty hallway, would you turn back, or pretend everything was fine? I locked the door. Double-checked it. Still, I didn't feel safe. The room was cold. Too cold. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening. Pipes knocked. Wind whistled. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Eventually, sleep took me, but it didn't feel like rest. Have you ever fallen asleep knowing something wasn't right, but your body gave up anyway? What would you do if a knock woke you from deep sleep, at 2 a.m.? Knock, 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 slow. Soft. Controlled. Not the knock of someone lost. The knock of someone careful. My heart started pounding. I held my breath. The knocking stopped. Then came footsteps, slowly backing away. If someone knocked like that at your door in the middle of the night, would you answer? Have you ever looked into darkness and felt it looking back? I crept toward the door. My hand shook as I leaned toward the peephole. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Then I noticed something. A shadow. Just barely out of view. Not moving. Waiting. My stomach dropped. If you saw a shadow standing just out of sight, would you open the door to check? Have you ever received a message that instantly filled you with fear? My phone vibrated. The sound felt deafening. A text appeared, "Do not open your door. Stay inside. Police are on the way." My chest tightened. My hands went numb. That's when the knocking returned. Louder. Faster. Angry. The door handle shook. If you were alone, trapped, and someone tried to force their way in, what would you do? Have you ever survived something, and only later realized how close you were to dying? That's how I felt when the police knocked on my door. Not softly. Not slowly. But firmly. Police. Open up. My legs were shaking so badly, I almost couldn't stand. When I finally opened the door, 2 officers stood there, and behind them was the motel manager, pale and trembling. One officer asked, "Did he try to get into your room?" I couldn't even speak. I just nodded. That's when they told me the truth. A man had been walking through the motel for hours. Knocking on doors. Pretending to be staff. Waiting for tired guests to open. In his backpack, they found a knife, duct tape, and gloves. He wasn't there to rob anyone. He was there to hunt. They said he had already tried 3 other rooms before mine. 2 people had opened their doors. Those guests were rushed to the hospital. They were alive. But barely. I sat on my bed in silence, staring at the wall, realizing that if I had been a little more curious, a little more tired, a little less careful, I wouldn't be telling this story. Even now, years later. After that night, I never stayed in cheap motels again. I never slept near doors. I never trusted voices in hallways. Because that knock taught me something terrifying: safety is an illusion. A locked door doesn't mean you're protected. It only means you're being separated from whatever is waiting outside. I survived because I didn't open that door. Because I listened to my fear. Because I stayed silent. But sometimes, I think about what would have happened if I had answered. Because later, the police told me something that still makes my blood run cold. The man outside my room had been watching me for hours. He knew when I arrived. He knew when I turned off the lights. He knew when I lay down to sleep. And worst of all, he wasn't working alone. They never found the second person. So if you ever hear knocking at night, when you're alone, when you're tired, when you just want to rest, remember this story. Because opening that door could be the last decision you ever make. But what if danger doesn't knock at all? What if it waits for you, on a dark road, where there are no doors to lock, and no one to call for help? In the next story, I'll tell you about the night my GPS led me into a forest, where strangers were waiting in the shadows, and my car stopped working. A place where escape depended on seconds. Would you have kept driving, or would you have gotten out? Have you ever felt like something was watching you, even when you were alone? My headlights barely cut through the fog. Shadows moved between the trees. Not like animals. Like people, hiding. Every few seconds, I checked my mirrors. Nothing. But the feeling wouldn't leave. If you felt eyes following you in the woods, would you keep driving? What would you do if your car died, in the middle of nowhere, after midnight? Without warning, my engine sputtered. Then stopped. Total silence. No signal. No service. No help. When I tried restarting it, nothing happened. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy. Coming from the trees. Would you stay inside, or get out to look? Have you ever seen something in the dark, and prayed it wasn't real? 2 figures stepped into my headlights. Tall. Thin. Faces hidden by hoodies. They stood there, staring. Not waving. Not speaking. Just watching me. One of them slowly raised his hand, and pointed at my car. If strangers blocked your path in the forest, would you trust them? Have you ever received a call at the exact moment you needed it? My phone buzzed. 1 weak bar of signal appeared. It was my sister. I whispered, "Someone is outside." She told me, "Lock your doors. Don't open. Call 911 now. Outside, the figures moved closer. Tapping on my window. Smiling. If someone smiled at you like that in the dark, would you feel safe? What would you do if help was coming, but danger was closer? Suddenly, my engine roared back to life. I slammed the accelerator. The figures ran after me. One threw something at my car. It shattered my back window. I didn't look back. After that night, I stopped trusting shortcuts. I stopped believing that faster was safer. I stopped thinking that danger only exists in big cities. Because that forest taught me something horrifying. Some places are empty, not because no one goes there, but because people who go there never come back. I escaped because my engine restarted. Because luck was on my side. Because fear made me react fast. But sometimes, I think about what would have happened if my car had stayed silent. Because later, I learned the truth. That road had a name among locals. They called it the Waiting Road. Travelers reported seeing figures at night. Broken cars. Fake emergencies. Traps. People disappeared there. Some were never found. And those men I saw, they were never arrested. Which means, they're still out there. Still watching headlights. Still waiting for the next car to stop. Still watching headlights. Still waiting for the next car to stop. So if you ever find yourself alone on a forest road, with fog in front of you, and strangers in your mirrors, don't slow down. Don't hesitate. Don't be curious. Because curiosity is what kills people in places like that. But what if danger doesn't come from the outside? What if it's waiting for you, inside a building, that looks empty, silent, harmless? In the next story, I'll tell you about a job I accepted out of desperation, about a house in the middle of nowhere, with no windows, no neighbors, no escape. A place where the door locked behind me, and I realized, I wasn't hired to work there, I was trapped there. Would you have gone inside? Have you ever trusted someone, and later realized that decision almost destroyed you? What if one small yes led you into a place you were never meant to enter? This happened when I was 22. Broke. Desperate. Looking for work. I saw an online ad, night caretaker needed. Remote location. Good pay. No experience required. Something about it felt strange. No company name. No address. Just a phone number. But I needed money. So I called. Would you accept a job, without knowing where you'd be sent? Have you ever followed directions, and felt like they were leading you out of the real world? The man on the phone gave me coordinates. Not an address. Coordinates. My GPS took me through empty farmland, then forests, then dirt roads. Houses disappeared. Streetlights vanished. My signal died. The last mile had no road at all. Just tire tracks in mud. If your phone stopped working in a place like that, would you keep going? Have you ever seen a building that didn't look real? The house stood alone in a clearing. Concrete walls. Rusted metal roof. One door. No windows. None. Not even small ones. It looked more like a bunker than a home. My chest tightened. Who lives in a place with no windows? Would you walk inside a house like that? Have you ever stepped into a place, and instantly wanted to leave? The door opened with a loud metallic click. Inside was darkness. Thick. Heavy. Like it was alive. The door shut behind me. Automatically. Locking. I jumped. No handle on the inside. Only a keypad. If you were locked inside a strange building, with no exit, what would you do? Have you ever discovered a place that you wished you hadn't? Emergency lights flickered on, revealing stairs going down. Underground. I heard noises below. Soft voices. Whispers. Crying. I followed the sound. Against my instincts. Would you go deeper, knowing something was wrong? Have you ever learned the truth, and wished you hadn't? The basement was filled with rooms. Each one locked. Each one numbered. Inside were people. Weak. Terrified. Trapped. Being studied. Filmed. Sold. I wasn't hired to protect them. I was hired to guard them. What would you do if your job was a lie? Have you ever run for your life, knowing you might not make it? Alarms exploded. Doors slammed. Footsteps chased me. I found an emergency ladder hidden behind panels. Crawled for what felt like hours. Blood on my hands. Breath burning. I burst out into open air, and kept running. Could you outrun people who wanted you silenced? Have you ever escaped something, but never truly left it behind? Police raided the house days later. It was part of a trafficking network. Disguised as research. Dozens of victims were rescued. Some never recovered. The man who hired me disappeared. They never found him. Sometimes, I still dream of that door locking. Of the darkness. Of the whispers. Because some houses aren't built to protect people. They're built to hide nightmares. Would you have gone inside? After I escaped that house, I stopped trusting easy money. I stopped believing strangers. I stopped thinking danger always looks dangerous. Because that place taught me something terrifying: evil doesn't always hide in dark alleys. Sometimes, it hides behind job offers, behind smiles, behind promises. I survived because I ran. Because I didn't hesitate. Because fear pushed me forward. But sometimes, I wonder what happened to the people who couldn't escape. The ones behind locked doors. The ones who screamed in silence. The ones whose names never appeared in the news. Police shut that place down. They rescued many victims. But not all of them. Some were already gone. And the man who hired me vanished. No face. No name. No trace. Which means, he could still be out there. Posting ads. Making calls. Waiting for the next desperate person to say yes. So if you ever see an offer that feels too easy, too perfect, too good to be true, walk away. Because some jobs don't pay you with money. They pay you with your freedom. But what if danger doesn't come from strangers? Or buildings? Or dark roads? What if it comes from someone you trust? Someone you love? Someone who knows your routine? Your habits? Your weaknesses? In the next story, I'll tell you about the night my best friend called me for help. And I didn't answer. About the voicemail I ignored. About the message that arrived too late. And about how one missed call destroyed everything. If your phone rang right now, in the middle of the night, would you pick up? Have you ever missed a call, and later realized it might have saved someone's life? What if one ignored notification became your greatest regret? My best friend, Marcus, called me at 1:17 a.m. I was asleep. My phone was on silent. I never heard it. He called again at 1:19. And again at 1:22. I saw all 3 calls in the morning. And by then, it was already too late. If someone you loved called you in the middle of the night, would you answer? Have you ever listened to a message that made your blood run cold? I played the first voicemail. Marcus was whispering. "Bro, I think someone's in my house." I paused it. My heart was racing. I pressed play again. I hear footsteps, but I'm alone. Then, a sound in the background. A door creaking. Slow breathing. Not his. If you heard that, would you panic? Have you ever walked into a place, and immediately felt that something terrible had happened there? The moment I stepped out of my car, I knew Marcus wasn't okay. His front door was wide open. It creaked slowly in the wind. The porch light flickered. Inside, the television was still playing. Some late-night comedy show. Laughing. While the house was empty. His shoes were still by the door. His jacket was on the couch. His keys were on the table. Like he had vanished in the middle of living. I called his name. No answer. Only my echo. If you saw your friend's life frozen like that, would you walk inside? Have you ever heard someone's fear, in real time? My hands were shaking as I picked up his phone. The screen was cracked. The recording app was still open. Still running. I pressed play. At first, it was quiet. Just breathing. Fast. Panicked. Then Marcus whispered. I locked myself in the bathroom. Something banged on the door. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then a voice spoke. Calm. Cold. Marcus. I know you're in there. I dropped the phone. If you heard your friend being hunted, would you survive listening? Have you ever chased hope, knowing it might already be dead? I opened the tracking app. His location was still moving. Slowly. Toward the edge of town. Toward nowhere. An abandoned factory. A place kids used to dare each other to enter. A place people said was cursed. I called 911 with shaking hands. I told them everything. Then I got in my car. And drove. Faster than I ever had. Would you wait for police, or follow your heart? Have you ever stood somewhere, and felt like death had already claimed it? The factory rose out of the darkness like a grave. Windows shattered. Doors hanging loose, metal screaming in the wind. My phone buzzed. A new voicemail. Timestamp, 5 minutes ago. Marcus whispered, he found me. I'm hiding. I'm scared. Footsteps echoed. Getting closer. Then screaming. A crash. Silence. If you heard that, would you run inside? Have you ever survived something, and still felt broken? Police arrived minutes after me. They searched the building for hours. They found Marcus near an old conveyor belt. He had fought. He had tried to escape. He had never stopped hoping. The man responsible had been stalking him online. Watching his posts. Learning his routine. Pretending to be a friend. They arrested him weeks later. Too late. Sometimes I still hear Marcus's voice. In my dreams. In my phone. In the silence at night. I replay those missed calls. Wondering, what if? Now, my phone is always on. Always close. Always loud, because one ignored call can destroy a lifetime. Would you have answered? After everything that happened, I thought the nightmares would stop. I thought once the truth was revealed, once the police had answers, once the case was closed, I could finally breathe again. I was wrong. Because some stories don't end when the credits roll. Some stories follow you long after the lights go out. Long after the phone stops ringing. Long after the world moves on. I tried to forget Marcus's voice. And I tried to stop replaying that voicemail. I tried to forgive myself for not answering. But one night, months later, something happened that changed everything. At exactly 1:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. Same time. Same date. Same minute. I had a missed call from Marcus's number. My hands froze. My heart stopped. Marcus had been gone for over a year. His phone was in police custody. It was impossible. But there it was. One missed call. No voicemail. No message. Just silence. When I called back, someone answered. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. Then a whisper, "You should have picked up." The line went dead. Police traced the call. It came from a burner phone, in another state, registered under a fake name. They never found the person. And weeks later, more people started disappearing. All of them had received late-night calls first. No messages. No warnings. Just ringing. So now, I never sleep without my phone beside me. Never. And every time it lights up at night, I'm afraid to look, afraid to answer. Afraid not to. Because what if the next call is meant for me? And what if, this time, I don't get a second chance? In part 2, I'll tell you what really happened to the people who answered those calls, and why some voices should never be heard after midnight. If your phone rang right now, in the dark, when you were alone, would you answer?